Hey yo, it's Retro. Welcome to another video. If y'all know me, you probably don't. A lot of y'all probably don't know me. I used to make a lot of recommendation threads on Twitter. A lot of people that follow me solely for that. And today, kind of go back to my roots. I've been wanting to do like a recommendation video for a while. There are a lot of comics that have come out in the last years. I've become a very different reader as well since I started making those recommendation threads. There are a lot of comics, and I love comics. And something that I love more than reading comics is getting other people to read comics. So I wanted to make basically a top 10 of comics that anybody can read, new reader friendly, whether you are an old fan of comics or new fan of comics, or you used to read a lot of comics, you stopped, now you're back and you want to read more comics. Now you want to get a little bit more acclimated with what's going on right now. Something that I like to tell people is, first and foremost, pick up any comic. If you are scared of a barrier or anything like that, just read it. A lot of people that got into comics, like myself, just picked up a book when we were kids and just read it. And honestly, I just stuck with it. One of my first comics that I ever read was a random X-Men issue. I don't even remember what it was. But now I'm a big fan of X-Men, so it works. I am going to focus a little bit on some black characters, some black writers as well. Very great books that I've read in the past year or so, along with some classics that I think that any comic reader should read just for the pure craft of comic books. I will try to link all of these comics below and show you where to get them. I'll try my best. So without further ado, this is in no order of quality or anything like that. This is just a top 10. Starting with 10. Have you ever wanted to read a Batman comic? Not know where to start? Don't know really like what writer to pick, what era, whatever, yada, yada, yada. Start with Batman Court of Owls. This is Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's first story on The Dark Knight. It's a New 52, jumping on point. This is a lot of people's first Batman comic. The start of one of the best comics to come out in the 21st century, especially for The Dark Knight. The Court of Owls is an extremely psychologically thrilling book. It really tests Batman's mettle as a superhero and as a detective and as a citizen of Gotham. It's a great Batman comic. I love it. I have read it and reread it several times. If you want to start with Batman, this is really where you should start, in my honest opinion. Number 9, Superman by Grant Morrison and Rag Morales. Technically, it is Action Comics, but it's collected as Superman Omnibus by Grant Morrison. This is one of the most slept on comics ever. I don't know how anybody has allowed this to fly under the radar like it has. This is classic Superman. This is Golden Age Superman brought into the modern age. It's fire. It's championing of the oppressor. It is so amazing. It is a textbook Superman comic. If you want to love Superman, I think this is one of the comics, at least it's one of the runs that you should read. It's not the best ever. I do think it has an issue with the ending. It does not end on a very complete note. You will be wanting a little bit. There are many series that are excellent as well, but I think this is one of those comics where I feel like if you want a general comic run on how Superman operates as a character, as a superhero, and how he works as Clark Kent, I feel like this is the comic that you should read. It's an excellent Superman comic. I only just read it for the first time like 2 years ago, and it surprised me. But again, it's Grant Morrison. They're one of the best writers ever, so it shouldn't have. And they're one of the best Superman writers ever. Excellent run on the character. If you want to read it, it is Action Comics 2011, number 0218. That's how it's collected. Or if you can buy the omnibus, it is a great looking omnibus. I own it and I love it. It's one of my prized possessions. Number 8. I struggle to call this a number 8. Number 8, Hardware Season 1 by Brandon Thomas, Bill Sienkiewicz, Dennis Cowan, and Chris Sotomayor. This is a dark horse. It's in my top 10. A lot of people have not read it. It's one of the best comics that you have not read. And for the simple fact that Brandon Thomas is an insane writer. For me, he is one of the few writers where they put something out and I am immediately going to read it. Doesn't matter what it's called, doesn't matter what it looks like, I don't care, I'm gonna read it. Also helps that you got Dennis Cowan, the original Hardware artist. Then you have Bill Sienkiewicz. Like, what? If I was Brandon Thomas as a writer, I would have been geeking my entire time writing this book. Two of the greatest artists ever drawing this book, and it's excellent. Curtis Metcalf is an interesting character. You can say that he is Milestone's version of Tony Stark. Really, I liken him more to the Milestone version of Steel. Either way, it kind of works. He is very much a vigilante, very much a hero that seeks vengeance in a similar fashion of Batman, but very different. What really separates them is the fact that he is not a part of the corruption. He doesn't feed into it in any way. His name is not connected to it. He's very disconnected. He is a black man in the corporate world trying to make it himself. He's under a very corrupt corporation and he's destroying it from the inside. Man, I remember when I first read Hardware season 1 and it was knocking my socks off at the time. I'm reading the original Hardware run and I'm just like, Brandon Thomas was just, if there was any writer to match Dwayne McDuffie's original plan for Hardware, I think Brandon Thomas is the one to nail it. He nailed it exceptionally. And then again, to have Dennis Cowan and Bill Sienkiewicz drawing the book, it looks excellent. It is gorgeous. It is a gorgeous book. Number 7, Reckless by Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, and Jacob Phillips. If you don't know Ed Brubaker, somehow, if you don't know Sean Phillips, if you don't know Jacob Phillips, these three are literally the trinity when it comes to crime noir comics. They are amazing. They're excellent. They are matches made in heaven. I am one of the biggest fans of this trio. I have so many of their work. I have the entire Criminal collection. I have Incognito. I Want to Buy Velvet. I have all of the Reckless books. Huge fan. One day I may show it off, but whatever. It's not really important. Huge fan of these guys. Reckless is probably these guys working at their absolute best. It's original graphic novels. It's a series of self-contained books. You can read them in any order that you want to, but if you want, it is obviously you start with the first Reckless book. You're following Ethan Reckless as he investigates some neighborhood crimes that tie into his past or his present. It's an excellent crime noir series. It most represents a superhero comic because Ethan Reckless kind of feels like a vigilante in a sense. It's very interesting. You're not dealing with a cop or a criminal as the main character. You're dealing with some guy who is just trying to help people. He knows he's a piece of shit, but it's okay. Excellent book. Honestly, it is the epitome of all the work that Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, and Jacob Phillips have been working on up to that point. Their work as the crime noir gods shines the most here. Excellent. Number 6, Green Lantern War Journal. The latest Green Lantern series by Philip Kennedy Johnson, Montos, and Adriano Lucas, following John Stewart. Just read it. I'm not gonna say too much. It is an excellent book. I wrote an entire review about this series, still trying to be like non-spoilery because in my opinion you should just read it if you're a fan of John Stewart like I am. I've been a fan of him as a Green Lantern since I was a kid. He is, for all intents and purposes, my Green Lantern, and it's all because of the Justice League cartoon. Philip Kennedy Johnson takes him and really hones in on his architect background, and it's beautiful, and it makes him a family man again. Not much to say. If you want to read my review on it, I'll have a link below. Excellent book. Coming in with number 5, it's gonna be another Batman book, but if I have to give you the Batman book that started it all, I also want to give you the Batman book that kind of ends it in a sense. Detective Comics by Ram V and a host of artists. This was the best Batman comic I have read this entire century. Ram V is a stellar writer. He takes Batman through this entire operatic journey, kind of questioning who Batman is, the myth of Batman, and also how he connects with Bruce Wayne on a very grounded but also mythological level. I could never talk enough about this book, but at the same time, I can never do this book justice. You have to read this. It kind of feels like Batman in his old age, but at the same time, it works. There is one caveat. Alfred is not present in this book at all. And for me, that makes it even more compelling as a Batman book. Excellent Batman comic. Genuinely, if I had to rank all of my favorite Batman comics, It's number 2 behind Batman and Robin by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. Coming in at number 5, we have Bitterroot by David F. Walker, Chuck Brown, and Sanford Green. I'm gonna do actually an entire review of this book as a video because I just recently read this and I'm actually extremely disappointed in myself in why it took me so long to read this book. It takes place in, I think it's Jim Crow era of America. It's following a black family that are kind of like monster hunters, and they're hunting these hateful monsters. The first one that they kill on page, you find out, is actually a white man. You kind of see where this is going when I say hateful. The ending is very beautiful. The entire journey going to this ending is so smart. It's so innovative. I would have never thought to frame racism and discrimination in general and oppression in this way. Walker, Brown, and Sanford Green, they just present one of the best black comics, and honestly one of the best comics I've ever read. Extremely underrated book. I loved every single page of it. I cannot sing Sanford Green's praises enough. Such a stylistic art style, and it fits so expertly with this story. It does say at the end of the series that it's not the end of Bitterroot. So I hope one day it does come back. I will be reading. I will be there day one. Number 3, Hawkeye by Matt Fraction and David Aja. If you somehow haven't read this comic, understandable. Not many people would recommend you read a Hawkeye comic, but if you have been a fan of comics, if you have been reading comics for a long time, Hawkeye by Matt Fraction and David Aja is a revolutionary comic book. It changed comics forever, showing this behind the scenes life of the superhero and doing it for a B-C-lister Avenger along with fairly new character in Kate Bishop, and it's very grounded. They're dealing with the fucking mafia, and at the same time it feels like you're in the streets of the Marvel universe while you're reading it. It's excellent. David Aja's art is amazing. It's so subtle, it's so simplistic, but at the same time it's so intentional. It's very detailed in the way that he shows certain aspects of an action sequence happening. If you know, you know. If you've read this book, you know that's amazing. And if you haven't, honestly, you need to read. This is one of the best Marvel comics that have ever come out, bar none. A lot of people probably put it top 10 in Marvel ever. And that's why I'm putting it in my top 10 recommended. If you're a new reader, if you're old reader, you just never caught this, you have to read it immediately. This is like, for me, this is recommended reading. This is required reading if you are a fan of Marvel. Now, we're at the last couple. Number 2, Icon by Dwayne McDuffie and Mark D. Bright. Rest in peace, MD Bright and Dwayne McDuffie. Icon is a sensational comic. A lot of people liken Icon as a character to a black Superman or Milestone's Martian Manhunter. And in a lot of ways, yes, that is the case. But Dwayne McDuffie was able to turn this Superman into a character that is very much, the message of this comic is that Superman isn't the symbol, or Icon isn't really the icon. It's his sidekick Rocket. It's fueled by Rocket's character, the journey that she goes on, and the superhero that she becomes. She is the inspiration in this comic. She inspires Icon a lot. But when you're reading this comic, you see so much of what makes Rocket such an incredible character. She's relatable, she's young, and she shows a side of superheroes that you don't really see. She's a 15-year-old that got pregnant and has a child, and she's still trying to be a superhero throughout this comic. It's excellent. The way she even becomes Rocket in the beginning is also so different. Dwayne McDuffie was one of the best writers. Personally, my favorite writer ever. Everything I read from him is just, I see the brilliance in his work. And MD Bright's art is just way ahead of its time. Very much holds up amongst these giants like Jim Lee and Kelly Jones, people like that were huge in the 90s. MD Bright, he's right there. He is right there with them. Dwayne McDuffie spun an incredible, compelling story about turning the icon on its head and really showing who the icon is in this story. I love this series so much. At number 1, you have Black Panther by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Ta-Nehisi Coates is a revolutionary. Black Panther fans, I am also one. We were blessed to have someone like him take the reins of Black Panther and forever change the landscape of Wakanda. You have people like Reginald Hudlin and of course Christopher Priest, who laid the foundation for Black Panther and Wakanda as a country. But Ta-Nehisi Coates really took that and pushed the envelope so much, introducing an intergalactic empire of Wakanda, and the way he introduced that was so interesting as well. It is a saga of a Black Panther comic. I put it number 1 because I feel like if you haven't read this comic, you're missing out on the best comic that has come out in the last 10 years. Sans House of X / Powers of 10. I don't know how I was so lucky as a Black Panther fan to be graced with Ta-Nehisi Coates writing Black Panther, and I hope one day he does return to write comics because I feel like he has the sauce, he has the juice. The man is insane. It does so much for the landscape of Wakanda. He tried to do a whole era where Wakanda was changing. There was a World of Wakanda book. There was a Black Panther and the Crew book. He and his collaborators made Wakanda amazing. It made reading the comics that were happening in the Black Panther mythos worthwhile. Great stuff. Brian Stelfreeze designing the Black Panther suit to kind of emulate the MCU suit, but also in a very comic book style, very classic comic book style as well, with some enhanced technology. Genius. This book is genius. The entire saga is genius. The way it culminates in the final issue in the second run is amazing. If you haven't read it, for me, this is my most recommended book right now. This may change, but it's an amazing book. I think if you haven't read a Black Panther comic, this is the Black Panther comic you should read, and then go back and read Christopher Reeves, but this is the one. This is my number 1. So yeah, that is my top 10 comics. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. If you guys have read any of these, let me know your guys' thoughts on any of them. What are some recommendations you guys would give to any new reader or old reader, whatever? Let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, catch you on the next one. Peace.